It is not only useful, it is actually critical, in my opinion, that you train your entire body and make sure that you work every muscle in it. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. But a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like down below, we greatly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed or following, please do so. And if you would be kind enough to drop me a comment down below, I would also greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much. So let's get over into this topic. And I mean, I can apply this at different levels. We can apply it obviously to the newer novice lifter. We can apply it to the more advanced lifter. There is this tendency for people to skip parts of their body. And I want to break down for everybody here listening, men and women both, why you really shouldn't do that. You do need to train your arms and shoulders, ladies. Guys, you do need to train your quads and your glutes and your calves. And the reason for this, I can briefly cover the aesthetic point, but I really want to get into the health benefits mostly because that's really what this is about. Now, that being said, every person out here realizes that a more balanced amount of musculature through your body probably looks better. In other words, you're still going to have a more attractive, more fit looking body. Okay. And I assume most of you who are lifting do care about that. You do want to look good naked. You do want to look good in a bathing suit. You know, you do probably want these things to some extent, even if it's not your primary. I get a lot of you out there like, well, that's not my primary goal. I'm not doing it for vanity. And I totally get that. I understand that because we're going to come into all the health benefits next. But realistically speaking, just having a better physique, every one of you notice that if a person is more proportionate, they tend to look better, right? People who have glaring muscles, you're just like, they skip that. That's the first thing that goes in your head, okay? The first thing that goes in your head. And people who are worried, like women are worried their arms are going to get too big, you're not using steroids. I really wouldn't worry about this, okay? That's the problem they have. They're seeing women who are juiced up and saying, oh, I don't want to look like that. Well, just skip the steroids and just lift the weights. Problem solved, right? Just don't use the drugs. There you go. You have no worries, right? Go ahead and get proportionate. Okay? So this is stuff that people need to remember with this. Don't look at people who are using a lot of drugs who you didn't realize were. That's probably the problem. And then realize, oh, that's why that's going on. You're not going to get that big. You don't have to worry about it. And on top of that, a lot of those women, I think the women forget, that's only when they're really lean sometimes. When they're softer and they're not ripped up and dieted down, they don't always have that look either. So you have to remember that. Guys, same thing. You're over here, well, upper body. Women notice your glutes. They notice your legs. They notice your butt. They're going to notice. And women do notice if a guy has good upper body and no legs. They do glance down. They see in the shorts. They know. And on top of that, guys, women like butts and legs on men. They do. This is well documented. There were studies looking at this. So again, when you're looking at overall attractiveness, this matters. So yes, ladies, you should train your upper body. Guys, you have to train your legs. All right, but let's talk about the importance, because that's more for attractiveness. That's more for aesthetics. So let's talk about the real stuff, the health. Okay. You do know there's going to be a finite amount of muscle you can gain in every muscle. So this is the point I'm going to make. If your goal is health, you should be gaining as much muscle as you can naturally, right? Without drugs, right? It would behoove you and benefit you to do so. All right, and I'm going to explain why in a minute. Each muscle is going to have a limited growth. Every year that you train any given muscle, it's going to grow less and less and less and less. It's almost like a 50% diminished return the first few years. Like the muscle gains, whatever, X amount of size first year, it's only going to gain half of that the next time. It's only going to gain half of that again the year after, assuming you're training it hard. That's what happens. You're going to see a quickly diminished return. And you're going to get to a point where you're going to get to a point eventually, if you do this long enough, where gaining a whole pound of muscle in your body is like a year's worth of hard work. Okay? That's a lot, right? A whole year to get there sometimes, if you've been training everything and it's maxed out. So it's not going to be limitless. So with that case being said, the muscles you're training are going to cap out. They're going to diminish all the time. So if you want more muscle, you're going to have to train everything. In other words, the muscles you haven't been training have the most growth potential. And people say, well, why do I care about that? Should I care? Look at all the research. Okay. We know based upon the studies on cardiovascular disease, number one killer, where cancers and diabetes is going to be the big one. Every drop of muscle on your body helps with those. But cardiovascular risk, gaining muscle is the best thing you can do. The meta-analysis at this point show that if you only picked one weight training and gaining muscle is going to be better for your heart health than cardio by a small margin. Now, if you do both, they have a synergy. They work really, really well together, by the way. But if you only did one, so already heart health, but let's come to those big ones, diabetes and cancer, okay? Muscle tissue is extremely insulin sensitive, okay? So are cancer cells. So any tumors you're going to get in your body, every ounce of muscle that you have on your body is tumor protective. Every single amount of muscle that you gain everywhere, whether it's in your calves or your biceps, it doesn't matter. All of it is competing with cancer cells and tumors for fuel. All right, we understand this? It's cancer protective. And this is not theoretical. This has been well documented. This is understood. It's a reason why we know that people who lift weights get cancer at a lower rate, even when other lifestyle factors are accounted for. The more muscle you have, the more protective it is. The more muscle you have, if you do get cancer and you have to go on chemo or whatever, you have a much higher survival rate. Okay? It's cancer protective. So yes, adding the bicep curls for the ladies. Yes, adding the calves for the guys. It literally helps to protect you against cancer. And if you do get it, it increases your chances of not dying. Same thing, diabetes. Okay? The more muscle you have, the less likely you are to develop any type of diabetes, obviously the type 2. Okay? You're going to have better insulin sensitivity. And so all things that are insulin disposal, glucose disposal, muscle tissue, trained muscle tissue is your number one glucose sink. It's your number one sink for lowering insulin, number one sink for lowering glucose. So all that insulin and blood sugar control, gaining muscle is the best thing you could possibly do. Gaining fat's the worst thing you could do. So again, and by that same token too, let's talk about gaining fat. The more muscle you have, the higher your metabolic rate, the less fat you gain easily. The more muscle you have, the harder it is to gain fat. You literally have to overeat more to even achieve it. Also means staying lean is easier. And yes, women, that applies to your biceps, and yes, men, that applies to your calves, particularly to your calves. All right, guys, so you want to train everything. It makes sense.